you all for being with us. We are going to record this event. We have the permission from Tal and from you all. So we are going to continue and record it all. Thank you so much for being with us in this third edition of Café com Homus. It's a very good talk between Brazil and Israel. We are doing this with Luciana Dotomi from Israel Trade. It's a very good partner. We went to Israel so many times with angel investors. We are meeting people, but in these difficult times, we are not able to do that. So we decided to bring a little bit of Israel to Brazil. And we understand that this kind of connection is very good for both countries and for investors and startups, because Brazil has some things that Israel don't have, and Israel knows some things that we don't know. So it will be a very interesting thing for both countries. And this is why we always work to do this a very good connection. I will not talk very much because you're not here to listen to me. So I will just ask Luciana to welcome you all and to introduce our wonderful guest from today. And thank you so much, Tal, for being with us today here.
Thank you, Maria Rita. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank Anjos do Brasil for this long-term partnership that we have. We value so much this partnership. And as Maria Rita said, we are happy that we can bring value from both ecosystems together and mingle everything. So thank you for this. Thank you, Tal, for accepting this invitation. For those who don't know me, I'm Luciana Dotomi. I'm from Israel Trade and Investment, a part of Ministry of Economy of Israel that foster business between Israel and Brazil. This is our role, and this is why we are here with you guys. So thank you everyone for joining. And Tal will give us some words. I would like to say very briefly who Tal is, for those who don't know Tal. Tal is a seed investor, entrepreneur. He sits on boards of several companies. He's founder at Disruptive VC, Disruptive Opportunity Fund, and Disruptive AI. He served the elite unity of intelligence in the army, and he graduated at Tel Aviv University, but he speaks about himself much better than I can. So Tal, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you all guys for joining me. Your morning, my afternoon. So what I will start with is that I want to talk today about what happened during COVID to the tech industry in Israel, and then the way I see it in the global market. And I'll start from the end. The end is that to date, most of the country in Israel are vaccinated. We got the second vaccine from Pfizer. Israel is open. You can go anywhere you want. There is some limitations, but 95% of the population above 20 years old is all vaccinated. They got the vaccine. The only ones that still didn't get it is kids up to the age of 16. And now Pfizer are saying that we will allow also that they will get vaccines as well. This is really important because it spread the notion that Israel is the first country to go out of this pandemic, and COVID-19 is definitely a world craziness that happened to all of us, and we all share this craziness. A bit about Israel and what happened in the tech industry in the last year. So we went into this in March 2020, just over a year ago. It was a true shocking to everybody. And what we had to do in the tech industry is first to absorb and to understand what's the new way of life and working will be. And I remember myself going to the office every morning, like 7 a.m., open the Zoom, bringing all of my entrepreneurs hour after hour, and talking about what it means for us, what we should do, how we should react, how we're going to sell to other companies when you can't meet them anymore, how people is going to work from home when you can't open the office, and all sorts of things that you have to deal with when COVID started. So I'll say that the first 2 months was really to understand how we're going to work it out, the pros and cons. And then after we absorb it, I think around mid-May, we understood, okay, this is going to stay with us. This is how we need to operate. How we're going to operate in marketing, in sales, and business development when there is no flights, when our employees are work from home, how productivity is going to work and not being suffered from the fact that we can't see them. And I think that the beauty of the high-tech industry is that we all adjust very quickly. As opposed to other industries, in the tech, everybody knows what it means to work out of the office. We all global people that work with global companies, so we know how to operate and cooperate with people around the world. Obviously, Zoom was a major player for us to be able to continue working. And I'm always saying that when I talk to people like you guys, or when I talk to my founders, or when I talk to other investors, I'm always saying that there is different challenges in the lifetime of the companies, if it's early stage, late stage, growth, pre-IPO, and so forth. And also, what's the vertical and method of sales that you are using to sell your products. For an example, if you are B2B and you are selling software at $150,000 a year or $200,000 a year, and COVID started, and you cannot fly to meet other people to sell, it's much more difficult than it used to be, because people have the sales for software above $100,000. You need to have some relationship. You're going to meet the customer, you're going out for a beer, you talk a lot, you develop this relationship, and suddenly this was out of the equation. You can't do it anymore. So you need to develop other tactics how to sell your software when you can't meet the customer. So that's what I call B2B high touch, okay? Then we have what we call the low touch or the inside sales. Inside sales means that you don't need to visit your customer. You can sell via Zoom, via phone, and so forth. And this is mainly for products that are above, let's say, $10,000 and up to $100,000, that you can do it with inside sales. You don't need to visit your customers as the B2B high touch. And then we have what we call the no touch SaaS services that you sell to without meeting anyone. It's all marketing. If you look at the most successful companies in Israel that went to very high valuations, like Wix, like Fiverr, like others, these companies have reached valuations of $10 billion, $18 billion, and they don't have one sales guy. It's all no touch SaaS services. You sell, it's all through marketing. You target your customer. It's mainly small businesses, SOHO, individuals, freelancers, and so forth. And you sell to them $10 a month, $5 a month, $20 a month. You don't need sales. And those companies were the most successful companies during COVID. They went, Fiverr, which is a public company, went from $700 million valuation to $10 billion valuation in less than 12 months, because they be able to quadruple sales all the time, because it's no touch. It's just for the freelance, and freelance wants to continue to do stuff even if he's not in the office and so forth. He still needs to work. So the acceptance for those companies were phenomenal. Now, I think that when you look now to Israel, I think that what you see is a lot of companies that went into maturity, grown up from being a medium-sized company to very big companies. I'll just give you a few numbers that you will understand. This year, 2021, there will be companies that will go public on NASDAQ or with SPACs to go public of about $140 billion. Okay, this is about 7-8 times more than years before in Israel. Companies just from the beginning of this year that announced that they will go public are tens of billions of dollars. And I'll give you a few examples. eToro, which is in the financial fintech area, announced they're going through a SPAC with $10 billion. Iron Source, which I invested in, announced they're going public with $11 billion. Playtika went public, $12 billion. So, and there is Monday and WalkMe and on and on and on and on. So it's true. What you see now is that Israel is really becoming a hub for not for just for startups, but for scale companies that can go to valuation of $10 billion, $20 billion and above. And I think this is a big change in the country, where we used to have companies that all the corporates and big companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, Cisco, and so forth used to come here, buy companies at hundreds of millions of dollars, and that was the end of it. Open big offices here in Israel for development and product, but there was no scale. Now, entrepreneurs, because there is more money that can fund these companies, they can do it and go all the way up, and they don't need to be sold or acquired by the corporate companies. So it's a big, big change in Israel, moving to scale and to allow companies to go into maturity stage. So I think that this notion will allow Israel basically to become the dominant player for companies in that really needs talent, have the product market fit, have the go-to-market strategy, and know how to cope when you have a lot of changes, when you can't travel, when you need to work from home, when you need to do other things. Israel is perfectly fit to do it. The Israel ecosystem today have VCs that are investing in seed stage, early stage, which is the A round, B round, and then there is the VCs that are more going after the growth, which is the C round, D round, E round, and so forth. With the fact that there is now a lot of money coming from the SPACs and the private equities, you can build and invest a lot of money, billions of dollars, into those companies before they'll go public to major event. And this is what happened, if you think about it, what happened the last 2 years in US, or 3 years. If you remember, there was companies that didn't go public until the valuation were tens of billions of dollars. If you look at Uber, if you look at Airbnb, if you looked at those companies, they waited a lot of time before they went public. And when they went public, it was huge IPO. I think this is the phenomena we're going to see now in Israel, that more mature companies will go public when they have valuation of billions of dollars and not earlier. And I think it's a very healthy situation for the economy and also for the high-tech industry. Now, if we look a little bit, connect Israel and the global market. So if you look to the US market, where we saw a lot of companies that did growth, now the IPO market is open, so you see a lot of companies going public, and the phenomena of SPAC went into play. And the SPAC really changing the dynamics, because it allows companies that are not at the scale of those of the $10 billion to go public from the back door, and then to start to do the marketing once they are public already. So the process of going into the SPAC, waiting those 60 days before you start to be public, do the redemption, and start to be traded, is something that we see a lot. In Israel, just in Israel, the last couple of months, we had like 7-8 SPACs, and it's going to be now every month. So it's another vehicle that allow Israeli and US companies to go public without doing it in the direct IPO traditionally, that what they did before. In US, you have zero interest, and there is a lot of company pouring, a lot of money pouring into the market, because with Biden plans, he just confirmed $1.9 trillion going into the market. And with all of this money going into the market, it's clear that the market will continue to be a good one as long as the interest is so low and people doesn't have a choice or doesn't have other alternatives where to put the money, where to invest the money. So the environment, I think, is very good for the market at large to continue growth. To be honest, with the NASDAQ traded now and the multiples and the PEs, sometimes I'm a bit concerned, because when you see that there is multiples that are start to be very high, and there is companies that without profit are getting valuations which is very high, sometimes it's a bit of concern. But as I'm saying, as long as there will not be any other alternatives, people will continue to invest money in the market. So I think that the sentiment is still very positive for the market at large. US market and NASDAQ, as long as there will be no other alternatives, it will continue to grow. Israel is a scale-up nation and scale-up high-tech industry where there is nothing else, okay? Then we can see and continue to see the growth of the Israeli tech, and I'm very, very optimistic about it. A little bit about what I'm doing, as you mentioned, I did few funds. Disruptive was the first one. Now I did the third fund, which is Disruptive AI, focusing on AI technology and product. I build a team that are expert in the AI, coming from the army, university, academics, and so forth, that are expert in the field, and we just starting now to do investments in early stage AI companies, and looking to get best deals from the entrepreneurs, and looking to see what we can do together, you guys here on the Zoom and myself. I visited you guys in 2016 during the Olympic Games, and I gave a lecture there, and I was happy to see a lot of people asking me about how they can be involved in the Israeli tech and so forth and so forth. I think it's about time that we will do something together. So I'm happy to talk and happy to answer any questions you guys might have. Please use the chat here to ask questions, and please do it in English, as or someone will translate, as I don't read Portuguese, unfortunately. But though I applied for a passport, Portuguese passport, as an Israeli, so I'm going to have a passport from Portugal in the next few months, me and my kids. So I might learn Portuguese, and then there will be no excuses anymore. So happy to answer questions if you have anything you want to ask me about the high tech, about other things, please.
Thank you so much, Tal. And it's a commitment. You have to learn Portuguese, and not only from Portugal, but come back to Brazil as soon as possible. Thank you so much. It was really interesting. We are starting to have some questions, so you can write the questions here, and Luciana will ask them. If you want to ask in Portuguese, there is no problem. Luciana is a wonderful translator. So Luciana, it's up to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tal, for the explanation. We've seen, I've been working with Israel for quite a long time, and I've been seeing that we're moving from the startup nation from the scale-up nation, and I think it's a great movement. I agree with you. José Celani sent a question here to you. In your opinion, what will happen to retail in Israel? If you can comment on some shopping centers, if you can comment on how shopping centers performed during the pandemic and how it is now after the vaccination.
Shopping malls, you mean?
Yes.
Shopping malls. Okay. Okay. So I'm must say that I'm not shopping mall expert, but and by the way, most of my shopping I'm doing online. I don't go to stores anymore. But I'll say that during the pandemic, obviously everything was closed. So I have friends that are owners of companies like Fox and Castro and so forth, that are big chains for clothes and textile and so forth. They've been hurt during the pandemic. The malls were closed. They've been compensated by the government for the loss of revenue up to 75% from the years before. So what the government did, they took 2018 and 19, they saw what was your revenue, then they compared to 2020, and then they compensated those that were affected.
if I may, Luciana, I have something to ask to Tal exactly about that. One of the things that we are talking a lot is that we have a change in how consumers are behaving. So connecting this to the retail market, do you think that this is an opportunity for the startups? Are you seeing some kinds of startups that are using this different consumer approach to do everything digital and online and shop? Here in Brazil, at least, even our grandmas are shopping online. So how are you seeing this, not only in Israel, but also in the other markets that you are connected with?
I think that what Amazon did to the online shopping is amazing. And basically everyone is following Amazon. Because if today I can buy anything I can think about from Amazon, and 48 hours, 72 hours after, I get it in my door where I don't need to go anywhere. It's a huge change for the online shopping. And now you see retailers in Israel and US and UK and everywhere that are moving more and more and more online. They have specific programs for online shopping. The big question will be, what will happen to the street, to the shops in the streets? Because if you walk on Oxford Street in UK, you still have many stores. But why do you go into Marks and Spencer, where you can get online shipping to you everything that is in Marks and Spencer? And the answer is that psychology, people still want to go and touch the clothes, see them, okay? Because they still not adapt to do the online shopping like the early adapters. But once it will happen in a generation. But my kids, they don't go anymore to any store. They don't know how store looks like. Everything is online. Click, 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 click. Daddy credit card, bye-bye, finished. They don't need to go anywhere. And for them, it's a hassle to go into a store. They losing 30 minutes of playing PlayStation. They could do it everything online. So this is the young people, the early adapters. And it's a habit that will create a lot of changes. And the big thing that everybody is talking about, what will happen to Fifth Avenue, to Oxford Street, to Paris, to Berlin, to Tel Aviv, to the shopping on the streets and in the shopping mall in 10, 15, 20 years. Why someone will even bother to go there? And this is one of the things that a lot of people are talking about, what the notion will be and how it's going to change.
Yes, it's a very good, it's something that makes me think about a lot. And one other thing that I would like to add, and since other people are not doing questions, I'm using all your time now, because there are some things that it's really important to me. Sometimes I have a discussion that we will have maybe just one or two big players in a market. For example, you said Amazon. Mm-hmm. How do you see other startups that are building marketplaces, that are trying to understand that, and even the industry and the stores? Will it be possible for us to have multiple players, or are we going to have just Alibaba in China and Amazon? How do you see that? So we as investors can understand the future, so we can invest better in this kind of companies.
I think that there will always be new players coming to the market. That's the nature of the beast, always. You have Shopify for certain things. You have Walmart that are a huge player now online, and so forth and so forth. This is the giants. but there will be newcomers that will specialize in different things, okay, that will compete with. So if I buy On Shoes, it's a Swiss company that specializes in sneakers, I go to On and buy directly from the website, okay? But if I don't know what I want, or I want mix of products, I need this and this and this and this, then today my first choice will be Amazon. But there will be competition, by the way, in every country. There will be a dominant player that will dominate the market, and then there will be a competition with Amazon and others. But we'll always have a local dominant player in every market that will be successful. And then there will be the runner-up and so forth. But this is always the case.
No, great to listen to that. And one of the other things that I would like you to comment is if these specialized companies, these startups that are doing smaller markets are interested to us as venture capitalists, because I don't think that we are looking for unicorns all the time. We don't need them, especially as angel investors. But at the same time, market size is something that matters. So how you see that for this kind of specialized startups?
If you look at there is categories, and in every category, you want to be the market leader in the category. Now, there is countries like China, like US, like even Brazil. In Brazil, if you are a market leader in specific category, it's a huge market. It's 200 million people. In Israel, it's 9 million people. It's a tiny market. When we start a startup, we don't think about the Israeli market at all. At all. We don't sell in Israel at all. We always think global. So there is Chinese that doing his startup. He doesn't have to go out of China for the next 20 years. He can sell to 1.4 billion people. In India, the same. In US, the same. We always have to think global. Now, you want to be in everything you do. If you look at the market, there is a category market leader. So if we'll talk about Uber, think about how many other companies there is that are competing with Uber. Uber is the market leader. He owns the category. He's the bigger one. If you look at Amazon, he's the biggest thing. If you look at Facebook, he's the biggest thing. It's a market category leader. Always will be new players, new companies that are coming, either country by country or doing products that are more relevant for the specific market, and they can still be a unicorn even if they do only few countries without do the global market. I think that there is a lot of room, and I'm always saying to entrepreneurs, think global, think about market leadership in terms of the category, and start to conquer market after market. And when you do that, I think that it's great.
Great. Tal, one question seeing this line post-COVID. What do you see the new trend?
There is a question here in the chat.
Oh, okay, let's go to them.
From Paulo. He did a comment about NASDAQ. How is your expectation for next month? Do you believe we are close to correction? Many for newcomers that are doing IPO. So this is a great question, Paulo, and I touched about it, but I'll say it again. I think that the multiples now are very high. The multiples are very high. But, and this is the big but, the but is that until the people have other choices where to invest, And when you live in an economy where there is zero interest and the US government will continue to pour money into the market, there is no reason why there will be a correction. Personally, I believe that at one point there should be a correction, and it's probably going to be in the next 6 to 12 months. When it's going to happen, I can't tell you.
Okay, thank you, Tal.
I wanted to ask
Thank you, Paulo. Yes. So my question was more related to the industry trends post-COVID. What do you see are the biggest trends in Israel and all over the world?
So I think that coming back to disruptive AI, startups now are looking to develop products where they can use NLP, natural language processing, deep learning, superhuman decision, and to do things automatically. I think that what COVID showed us, that if you build a new product, you should think about how to do the whole process automatically without any intervention of anyone. And this can go to fintech, to e-commerce, to biotech, to biologic synthetic, to cybersecurity, to digital health, but make it automatic, superhuman decision, and be able to sell it very quickly. This is the advantage of AI, and this is why I chose to do my fund now as Disruptive AI.
Yes, thank you so much.
So let's see if there is more questions, and if not, we will say goodbye to everybody here. Any other questions? No.
Okay, so just to finalize, I would ask yourself an advice for the angel investors in this room. What kind of advices do you give to new angels or to angels that are meant to start right now? And we can finalize with this advice.
Okay. I'll just say that when I was an angel investor before starting VCs, so I was an entrepreneur, then angel investor, and then a VC, okay? As an angel investor, what I'll say is that you should, because you are the first money in as an angel investor and then the VC come after, you should make sure that when you invest, you pretty much knows how much money the company will need down the road, because otherwise what happens is that you put the first money in, but it's not enough for the company to go to a stage where VC will invest, and then you lost your money. So when you invest, always talk to the entrepreneur and the founders on how much money will be needed during the time, let's say the first 24 months. And if you know that, and you know how to bring the next money after you, then go ahead and invest. And if not, and you don't see how people are going to invest after you, the risk is much, much higher.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time, for your
advices. For being here. Pleasure to be here as always. And if you need anything, you know these guys to approach them and they will ask me. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Tal. Thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.